Well, why me? Why didn't you pick on him?
Well, he's young, and I thought that... Well, you're older. You're comfortable.
Comfortable?
Well, that's all
Been called a lot of things, but comfortable.
You went early.
It looked like 0 to me.
You went early. I still had one, and you opened yours.
I was trying to not get distracted by you struggling with your tab over there.
Dude, the fucking tabs, man.
Welcome to Movie Boners, everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
And this week, I am wearing my pajamas because it's a very comfortable week here in the Movie Boner studio. And
the Movie Boomers. And the beer I'm drinking is also kind of a cozy, comfy beer. It's kind of a breakfast beer. It's from Weldworks Brewing Company, who makes some of the weirdest beers in the planet. The weirdest beer.
And super flavorful. This one is weird and flavorful as well. It is a coffee French toast stout.
Oh, there you go.
It is brewed with maple syrup, cinnamon, Peruvian coffee, milk sugar, and vanilla. And it is quite tasty.
All right. Yeah, I remember going to the actual brewery, and you and I were both like, what the hell are we drinking?
Yeah.
Well, I too am drinking a very comfortable beer. It's a little taste of home. I haven't had this beer since being in Colorado before I moved out here. So I went with a classic. Jake, you will like and agree with me. I had to go with my 90 shilling.
90 shilling is
from
great.
Odell's. Oh, man. I took that first slip and was like,
yeah, that's like
it's
my
so
go-to.
good.
Whenever I go out and can't think of what I want, you can't go wrong with 90 shilling. And it's everywhere in Colorado.
Yeah, it's just, it's so wonderful. It's so good. Well, thank you, Wandering Lions, for the beer. Go check them out, guys. They do all like sorts of independent filmmaking or independent artist, kind of supporting all that. Check them out, Wandering Lions Biz or WanderingLionStudios.biz.
There you go.
It's the last few days have been kind of a whirlwind down here.
Yeah. Well, you got there eventually.
Words are hard. Yep,
they are hard.
By the way, speaking of Wandering Lions,
fuck
all of you.
You can't figure out that clue?
No. It is so annoying. And I feel attacked. I feel betrayed by my own bud.
Your own co-host. Yeah. Well, you're going to feel extra silly when it comes out on Monday.
Oh, yeah, because you already know it, right?
I do.
I
looked it up so that I could bask in your downfall, which I posted on the comments.
Oh, no, the way you put it was not downfall. You put it as demise.
Yeah, that too.
And, so, jerk.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yep. Yeah, I am at a complete loss with this one. So props to you, Wandering Lions, you dicks.
My favorite was their response. They're like, "Oh, we thought
we thought it was pretty easy." It's like,
perfect.
I hate all of you.
Yeah. All right. Well, because you're getting a little depressed about your failure this week, I think it's a good time to dig into our most comfortable movies, the movies that we always return to, that we've seen a million times because they just feel good to watch.
Yeah, they are the go-tos. I know I have mentioned several times movies being a go-to that are already on top 10, so I avoided a lot of those. At least I hope I avoided a lot of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, our go-tos are top 10 comfort films might not be all that comfortable for all audiences.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to admit some things about ourselves that's going to get a little weird because they're going to be like, that movie is comfortable for you? Yeah, kind of is.
Yeah. I'm gonna put a little preface right up front. You've heard me mention it several times that I'm known to use the movie The Exorcist as like, oh, I'm having a hard time sleeping. I'll just pop that on and I'll fall right asleep. Yep, that actually happens, folks. It's a relaxing movie to me. But because I've mentioned it so many times, I decided to omit it from this top 10 list and just have it as everyone already knows. I'm so fucked in the head that I watch a movie about demonic possession and death. Maybe there is something wrong with me. Oh, well.
No, I know what you mean. I considered very heavily revisiting Hereditary because it's just one of my all-time favorite movies, and there's something about the style and editing and pacing of that movie that feels so good, even though so many people describe that it stresses them the fuck out to watch it.
Yeah. People were having like heart issues watching that movie when it first got released. So, but I totally understand because I almost revisited that movie as well. And then I was like, but it's already on my top horror, so I can't put it on this one.
Yeah, same.
Go me.
But I think we still will have some surprises this episode. I noticed I had a lot. A lot of mine are comedies and romantic comedies.
A lot of mine are comedy.
Nice. Yeah, it's one of those.
I was like,
one of those things that just it makes you feel so good.
Yeah, and I was not surprised by that at all. I kind of figured like, yeah, this feels correct because you do turn to comedy to like feel better because laughing makes you feel better and all that.
Yeah.
But mine also has like, people dying.
I have at least one very violent movie. Yes.
So yeah, it happens. But yeah, this was a fun one to do. I have way too many honorable mentions because when I was prepping for this, one, I got a little behind because I was just watching so many and then trying to watch other things on Netflix with my kid, or for my kid, that I got a little behind. So I didn't get to watch all of the movies that I had wanted to, but I'm going to narrow my honorable mentions way down because it is a stupid long list of honorables because it turns out movies in general just make me feel good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that was also, I think, part of the reason it was hard to... I was excluding everything that we've kind of talked about so far, so that's also a lot of my favorite movies. I excluded some things that I'm saving for topics that I know are coming up. And then I still had a ton of movies. I'm like, I love this movie. I love watching this movie. I love quoting this movie. I know all the lines to this movie. Yeah.
This was also one of those lists where I found myself thinking like, man, I bet we're going to finish this. And by the time it ends, I'm going to be like, fuck, I should have put that on my list. Or, oh crap, I just thought of this one. Why didn't I watch that one this week? Yeah. So I feel like our top 10 comfort films will be one of our revolving lists that can change at any moment. But for right now, we should get into it. I don't think we have any
extra stuff.
Anything to like, I don't think we have extra stuff.
I don't think so.
Right?
I think this is it.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's get it. Let's cozy up.
Yeah, perfect time to Jake, curl up on the couch, wear your pajamas if you are so inclined.
Right. I am not wearing pajamas, but dude, it's Snoopy.
Yeah.
And
Snoopy.
That dude's always chill. He's always comfortable. So
it's true. Even sleeping at the apex of a doghouse, which doesn't seem comfortable at all.
But the dude does it regularly.
Yeah.
Makes it look comfortable, which Teach their own.
It's
Hey.
true. It's true. All right.
Well, I think you should kick this one off because I think I kicked the last one off.
Probably, possibly. I'm fine with that. So my first movie is a romantic comedy, and it's kind of a fun, silly one. So don't at me too hard, but I honestly love this movie. My number 10 top comfort movie is Win a Date with Tad Hamilton.
Oh my God.
It may be the girliest movie on any of my lists, but it's genuinely a sweet, fun movie. The cast is so fun. So if you've never seen it, Kate Bosworth and Topher Grace and Jennifer Goodwin work at like a Piggly Wiggly in Fraser's Bottom, West Virginia. And they're just like best friends. And they decide to enter a contest to, like the title implies, win a date with Tad Hamilton. And Tad Hamilton is played by Josh Duhamel, and he is handsome and like a super famous heartthrob actor that all the girls love. And of course, he's super like Hollywood. He's in tons of random things, but he's very like a Hollywood, like very much West Coast kind of guy. And so it's kind of a clashing of two worlds when Kate Bosworth does win a date with Tad Hamilton, meets him, and she's very Southern West Virginian. He's very Hollywood, and he really likes her goodness and how like, you know, normal she is compared to all the fake LA stuff. But the main conflict, which is such a gentle conflict, which is part of why I like the movie, is Topher Grace secretly loves Kate Bosworth's character.
Naturally. And
so they've been best friends forever, but he's never really told her, and he's getting ready to go off to college and all this stuff. And so he's trying to undermine her new friendship with Tad Hamilton while putting himself out there as a potential love interest for her. And it's just sweet. It's cute. It's pretty darn funny. There's a lot of like little subtle jokes in it that I think definitely pay off. And so I don't know why, but it's one of my favorite movies, and I just keep going back to it.
I have nothing to really add to it. I know I've seen it, but I saw it when it first came out, which was what, back in like 04, 03 or 04?
Oh my God, you're amazing. It's 2004.
Yes. Yeah, I know I saw it when it came out. I just don't remember anything about it. You know, that's like high school days, and maybe I don't remember the movie because
you're busy making out.
I was probably making out during it with like my girlfriend at the time. So,
well, I saw movies for their content when I was in high school because I didn't have a girlfriend.
Shots fucking fired.
I didn't have a girlfriend because I was a total dork, but that's fine.
You were a homeschool weirdo.
Yeah, watching
no offense, homeschool people out
watching
there.
rom-coms by myself at home. But to make it less like nerdy and dorky, it's directed by Robert Lukatic, who directed The Ugly Truth, and written by Victor Levine, who wrote Destination Wedding. So legitimate romantic things, funny things, just in a more, fun way.
Yeah. I can picture the cover, but I just can't. I have no like actual like memory blips of it. So
if you saw it, I think you would like it.
Dude, let's face it, I'm a sucker for that, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I probably would.
Yeah.
Well, just like I don't remember seeing yours and don't have too much to add. I can't imagine you've actually watched this movie.
Okay.
My top 10, when I first saw it, I thought it was one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen, but I was immediately hooked to it, and it didn't help that like my buddy was absolutely obsessed with this movie when it came out, and he made us watch it all the time. So I've been watching this movie since it first came out. This is a fun, stupid stoner snowboarding movie called Out Cold.
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's one of those where the older you get, the more you should hate it and just be like, God, this movie's so bad. Mm-hmm. The older I get, the more I love Out Cold. It is so dumb. Yeah. And that's what makes it so good. You got David Koechner as like the random, weird, eccentric kind of, you can't tell if he's on drugs at the moment or he just did too many and he's in a like permanent Aussie state.
Yeah.
It's about like this small little mountain town on this mountain called Bull Mountain that's getting sold to a big old corporate douche who wants to change the whole thing. And no one in the town wants it to change. So they're all kind of like, no.
Yeah.
So full of stupidity, full of immaturity. It's just fun to watch. Very early Zach Galifianakis, so check that out.
Yeah, it was my introduction to Zach Galifianakis, if I recall.
Yes. Mine too, actually. No idea who he was, and then I watched this, and all of a sudden you saw his name everywhere.
Yeah.
Not because of Out Cold, but it just seemed like that. Anyways, and it's like, I just forgot the lead actor's name. I don't care. It's before he went crazy on the drugs. So it's just a fun, mindless movie. It's one, I mean, whenever the weather turns and it starts to get cold, at least when I lived in Colorado, as soon as the snow would start to fall, Out Cold was a movie where it was like, oh, the snow's here. We're watching Out Cold. Yeah, I genuinely enjoy this movie. I laugh my butt off every time I watch it. I can quote almost the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love this movie so much.
There's something, I don't know how much of it is nostalgia and how much of it is just because they're so fun. But there are so many of those like teen comedy, stoner comedy movies that I just love. And I'm going to be the awkward guy in my 40s who's watching like Euro Trip and like having the best time because it's just the funniest thing ever.
I'm going to venture and say you and I are not the only guys or only people in our mid 30s, and we'll be older, still going back and watching these movies. I think nostalgia has a big part to it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just, we genuinely enjoy those movies when they can't, like, they're just funny to us. So, yeah. God, I love Out Cold. It's so fun.
It is really fun. So my number 9, I know we've both seen. You said you didn't think I would have seen Out Cold. I've definitely seen Out Cold.
Dude, like, no one knows about that movie.
Oh, man, that movie was great. I also had a friend who I remember watching it, like, I think it was when, like, DVD was new or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can you get an STD from a polar bear?
But my number 9 is one that I know we've both seen. So many people have seen. I think it's the oldest movie on my list from 1986. Yes. Maybe. I don't know when that one came out. I didn't write it down. But anyway, my number 9 is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Classic.
Not a crossover, but how the fuck did I not watch Ferris Bueller this week?
Yeah. It's one of those movies that it's so like famous and everybody knows about it, even if they haven't seen it. But when you need a comfort movie, there's something so cathartic about a charming, clever young man who just gets away with doing everything he wants to do. And that's basically all this movie is it's a young, charming Matthew Broderick doing whatever he wants. Everybody's saying, no, you can't do that. And he just charms his way into doing it anyway. And the things he gets away with, the things that I don't identify with him so much because he is like someone who is like, he like getting on floats and he's like being in the spotlight and stuff quite a bit, but it's still, I don't know. It just feels so good to see him succeed. There's not a lot of conflict. It's always funny when the like principal tries to stop him and all these people try to stop him. but it's fun.
Well, I think everyone pretty much can identify with Cameron.
Yeah.
And I think Cameron kind of, and this is my own, I'm going to try and give like a deep philosophical take on Ferris Bueller. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need it, but I'm going to do it anyways. I think Cameron is kind of like all of us, like kind of people in general. And Ferris Bueller is who we kind of wish and dream like that would be great to be able to pull that off, which leads to the theory that Ferris Bueller does not in fact exist, but that's kind of a dumb theory considering his whole family life. So
yeah,
it
doesn't make any sense other than people wanting to turn it into Fight Club or something.
Right. But Ferris serves as such a great tool, especially for Cameron to kind of use to be able to face some stuff and maybe not just like submit all the time, because Cameron does grow and he does become more assertive. So I think Ferris Bueller is possibly one of the most relatable movies, just in terms of we all want and need that kind of catalyst to like help us grow.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's
totally. Yeah,
I think that's probably why that theory came about, that Ferris Bueller is a figment of Cameron's imagination or part of his personality that forces this change into him, gets him out of the house, gets him to change throughout the movie, is because Ferris Bueller is so important to that process. And you could, I guess, see that he subconsciously wants to, even though he doesn't have the motivation to, and he needs this other person to help him. But I think it's better that it's just his best friend that knows he needs that he has this monologue all about Cameron and what Cameron's issues are and what Cameron needs. He knows what he needs and he wants to help him out. So I think it's great and it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, I agree. Ferris Bueller is just that's almost as classic as you can get in terms of like the 80s style and all that.
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller just, God, why did I not rewatch that movie?
And it's written and directed by the legend John Hughes, who wrote my movie last week.
That's right. Which you have a lot of popularity with yours, and I'm kind of jealous about that.
Oh, I needed to check.
That Mel Gibson. Yeah, it must have been that Mel Gibson decision. Jerk.
Yeah, I went upstairs and my wife was like, okay, which movie was yours? Because I voted for one and I really want to know. I didn't tell her what my movie was or any of my cast or anything. And she's like, I voted for one, but I wanted to vote for yours and I didn't know which it was. And so I voted for the December one and I was like, that was mine.
Damn it.
Yeah, it was pretty lucky.
Yeah, I should have gone more ridiculous with mine. But you know what? Mm-hmm. At least I dove heavy and came up with a story.
It's just because there was a shirtless Ryan Gosling photo.
You know what? I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
You went the sex appeal route and
sex sells.
Sex sells. All right. I'm not jealous. No, not at all.
It's cool.
Well, my number 9 is going to be the first one that people are going to be like, what? Mm-hmm. Really? And yes, really. I rewatched this movie, I will admit, probably too many times. It's not even like... No, it is. It's a fun, well-made... I'm going to call it a survivalist movie.
Oh.
Ish. So my number 9 is called You're Next. It is about this family who are having a small... immediate family reunion for the first time in a long time. Girlfriends and wives are showing up, or boyfriends are showing up to meet the family. The family's kind of reconciling, and all of a sudden people wearing animal masks show up and kill people and start terrorizing the family and trying to kill them all. It's insane. It's brutal. It's bloody as hell. But the main chick in this movie, the main woman, sorry, Apparently, you're not supposed to say chick anymore.
What?
That's the 90s kid in me coming out. I don't know. I apologize. Anyways.
Chick's a compliment, by the way.
The heroine of the movie is played by Sharni Vinson, this Australian beauty. She is a badass and not to be messed with. So as the family is starting to get terrorized by these masked killers, she goes into survivalist mode and starts coming up with ways of defense. She's able to fight and do crazy hand-to-hand combat, but it's not like kung fu hand-to-hand. It is, I grab this hammer, I'm going to block you and beat you over the face with the hook part of the hammer. It is brutal, and it's so much fun. This movie, like, I don't know what it is about it. It's like The Strangers on crack.
Yeah.
But I find myself staring at my mass collection of movies, and I'm like, God, I have no clue what I want to watch. Oh, I'm going to watch You're Next. And I'll pop that in, and it's relaxing to me. I'll chuckle, like, it's such a fun movie for me, and I love it.
I remember,
but I call it a survivalist just because of the woman.
Yeah. I remember, like, I think I saw it once. I remember being very intrigued by the trailer, but I felt like I was disappointed when I saw it. Maybe I need to revisit it.
They don't do anything like crazy new or super different. It's just, there's just something about it that I go back to it over and over and over again. And I'm just like, I genuinely enjoy this movie. It wasn't like a huge box office success. In fact, I don't even think it was an actual success. It premiered in like 2011 at a small film festival in Toronto. And then it got released theatrically 2 years later in 2013. So it may have lost some traction in between.
IMDb estimates the budget at $1 million, so pretty low budget. And gross worldwide is almost 27 million. So I would say success overall.
Yeah, success. But yeah,
I like the IMDb lists the crazy credits, and if the actors in the end credits are listed next to a picture of their character's dead body. That's pretty cool. I do need to go back and watch this movie.
I think you would dig it. I mean, it's, in all honesty, it's not like it is a super special movie, but it's one of those that I just enjoy. I love the movie The Strangers, but The Strangers is pretty intense.
Yeah.
So I feel like You're Next is the fun version of that, and maybe that's why I go to it all the time. I don't know, but
yeah,
You're Next. I love that movie.
That sounds great. I definitely will rewatch that movie.
And Jake, I think you would love the main character, especially when she goes into survivor mode.
Yeah.
I could see you being like, yeah, do that. Oh, man. Yeah. Like, hit him harder.
Chicks kicking ass with, like, especially with, like, Homebreak and stuff, or, like, Ready or Not, or movies like that.
Yep.
The Hunt, all these movies. That's awesome. Everybody loves that.
It's amazing. Like, we just continue that trend. It's great.
Yeah. Okay. So my number 8 favorite comfort movie of all time is probably one of the funniest movies that listeners probably have never seen. I imagine you have seen it because you've seen every movie, but a lot of people I talk to have not seen it. My number 8 is The Birdcage with Robin Williams.
Movie's awesome. How do you know people who have not seen The Birdcage?
I've talked
that
to
movie
a good
is
amount.
Great.
Yeah. So it is amazing. One of the funniest movies, and especially because Robin Williams and Nathan Lane are perfect and hilarious together. They're just like the funniest couple. Well, they are a gay couple in this movie living in like South Beach, Florida, and Robin Williams' son is going to get married to a woman who is the daughter of like a super conservative Republican senator from, I don't know, somewhere up north. And but I realized while I was like writing out what this movie is about, nowadays you would assume that this movie has like strong message or leaning or makes fun of certain people and not other people. This movie is so great because I think it's so even and gentle, and there is like the lightest of conflicts between, and in such a funny way, between Gene Hackman and Diane. Hold on, what's her name? Diane Weist, who play their, I guess, in-laws, mother of the bride. And when they end up meeting, not only are Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, gay couple, but they are the owners and operators and live above a drag club that, and it's extra funny because they try to play straight for a while to make the new in-laws comfortable. And so it's just so funny. One of the funniest parts is Hank Azaria, who plays like their gay houseboy butler guy, who has like the thickest Guatemalan accent. It's just the funniest, like sweetest movie. I love The Birdcage so much.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for a movie whose subject matter these days you would think would be an automatic like trigger warning, red flag, what have you, I think it's one of the best movies that focuses on like kind of the parody of stereotypes, if you will. They make fun of both sides pretty evenly, and Robin Williams and Nathan Lane are perfect together. I can't believe we never got more with those two.
Yeah.
They are so freaking funny. Nathan Lane trying to be a straight woman is one of the best Hollywood, like that's one of the best gags in a comedy. Yes, this movie, The Birdcage, is fantastic. I can't believe people. I mean, I guess I technically would know people that haven't seen it, but everyone should watch it. It is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, so fun, so funny. It's great.
God, I love that movie. Well, my number 8, man, this movie is just so enjoyable. Again, it's a good mindless movie, but it really has stood the test of time, and the audiences are still there. I remember sitting my daughter down to watch the first two, and we watched it, and she immediately just was like, this is great. It's hilarious. It's silly. You feel good at the end of it. It kind of makes you want to learn some stuff. It kind of intrigues some, like, maybe I should read or learn some history. My number 8 is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
Man, I can't watch this movie without smiling the entire time. And I love all 3 films. All 3 of them are great. But that first one is just, it's special. That first one is so freaking funny. And it's full of heart. And for like the immaturity and just kind of the silliness of the whole plot and the whole shebang between all 3 movies, to continue to focus down to like the simplest of life lessons possible that they just repeat over and over and over, hoping that us as the like dumbass grown-ups kind of get it through our thick skulls.
Right.
Like, I love this movie. The whole idea of just be excellent to each other and party on, like, hell yeah. I love Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Genuinely love Bill and Ted. Rewatching it this week, I was like, I think I'm a bigger fan at this moment than I was even then. Back then.
Yeah, it's one of the most genuinely positive messages and movies, and you can't go wrong with it. It's so good. It's
It's just a wonderful movie. It really is. And Man, I've been a Keanu Reeves fan for as long as I can remember, and him as Ted is just, yep. It's so awesome to see how he went from playing Ted to where he's at now, and he still embraces Ted. Yeah. Like, he's still so proud of that, and I think that's fantastic that he's still like, oh yeah, Bill and Ted, all for it, you know?
Yeah, well, to make the third one and revisit that character so long after this first and second one is certainly a big deal. But and
he's been an advocate for it for years, even before anyone knew they were going to make that third one. Mm-hmm. He was constantly talking about, like, I would love to do it again. They just got to get the script. They just got to get me something. I would love to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it might be, I'm looking at my list. It's one of the most positive movies I have on my list.
Okay.
I've got a few, but it's up there.
Yeah.
It's such a sweet film.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. Check them all out. It's so worth it.
It really is.
So my number 7 is positive overall, but it's pretty dark goings in the beginning. So my number 7 is another rom-com called Elizabethtown.
Oh, you've told me about Elizabethtown.
Oh my God.
I have never seen Elizabethtown.
I don't know what it is about Elizabethtown. I honestly couldn't put my finger on exactly what this obscure little movie struck so immediately and completely within me was. I think partly it's one of those movies that you just find at the right time in your youth that strikes you. And this movie did that for me, but I think that it has the potential to do it for so many other people. And I say this not being a very big fan of Orlando Bloom, who is the lead in the movie, but there's something about the melancholy and romance of this movie that just hits me perfectly. It is written and directed by Cameron Crowe, who makes movies that feel good in general. He did Say Anything, Jerry Maguire, Almost Famous, We Bought a Zoo, if you like Matt Damon and zoo animals. But if you listened to the draft last week, you may have been surprised by my love of Kirsten Dunst, who this is probably the movie that opened my eyes to her long ago in the early 2000s. She's incredible in it. She's probably the main reason this movie is so good. Her character, Claire, and how she approaches Orlando Bloom's character's feelings and his fiasco is so perfect. So the main, I guess, gist of the movie, it is a little dark. The reason I said it was a little dark is because Orlando Bloom is involved in this shoe company, shoe designing of all things, and he does something that costs the company almost $1 billion, and so he basically loses everything. He decides that he wants to kill himself, and he has this super elaborate scheme involving a kitchen knife and the weirdest exercise bike I've ever seen. And it's during that setup of killing himself that he gets a call that his dad died. And so he needs to go to Kentucky to bury his dad. And his mom is Susan Sarandon. His sister is Judy Greer, who was weirdly in a ton of the movies I watched this past week. Judy Greer, huh? Judy Greer is low-key in a ton of great movies. And then he plans on getting back to killing himself after he buries his dad. He says nothing's going to interrupt the plan. That's the thing. But he doesn't anticipate running into Kirsten Dunst's character, Claire, who's a stewardess on the plane, and she basically just is weird and crazy and changes his life in a lot of little ways. And it's just the cutest movie overall. But I think it also, one of the best parts about it is how he had been so depressed and concerned about the worst day, worst week of his life. And learned to see beyond that even around the corner, something great can happen to you that you don't expect. And he kind of refines himself, refines his future, and then finds a little bit of love along the way. So it's just the cutest darn movie. I don't know what it is. So many people haven't heard about it, but I love it.
Yeah, you've told me about it a few times. I gotta get around to watching it. I was looking it up while you were talking. I was, all right, where am I going to watch this? So,
Nice.
yeah, I feel like that movie came out, probably got mixed up in did it come out at the same time or did it come out before? What was its release to Garden State?
Oh, I do think
that?
it was. I do think it was probably very similar.
Okay, because I remember Garden State being like the super popular one because of Zach Braff and everyone was like on the Scrubs train.
Yeah.
Nothing against Scrubs. It was a great show until that last season.
Came out the year after Garden State, so I could see it getting lost in his shadow. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But I remember when it came out and just didn't watch it. But you have mentioned it several times, and I feel like I really need to get down and buckle down and watch that movie.
I agree.
Yeah. As soon as like you said it, I was like, oh, he was watching that last week too. That's why he brought her up in the draft. It's like, there it is. There it is.
Yep.
Well played, sir. Well played. Well, my number 7, you have to watch the original version, which only came out like 2 or 3 years before the remake. And the remake, I never bothered with. I saw one trailer for it, realized it wasn't funny at all. Said, fuck that. I can't believe they remade it. And I only stick with the original one because it's hilarious. My number 7 is a British film called Death at a Funeral.
Yeah. Yeah,
Man.
I felt the same way, honestly. I saw the original British Death at a Funeral, I don't know how, randomly. And then, they made it with the remake with like Chris Rock, the American version. And I was like, no way. Not going to be the same.
And the preview there was no heart in the no, you could tell right off the bat, everyone was trying to force the comedy and like, look how many one-liners we have. Whereas the original one, there are no one-liners in the original movie. It is just actual comedy. It is situational comedy that takes place at a funeral.
And
so
pretty dry as far as like
very dry.
As British dry humor.
It's super dry. You get like the only not dry humor of the movie is Alan Tudyk. But this movie, when people ask me who Alan Tudyk is, I tell them all the time, you need to just watch the original Death at a Funeral, the British version. That is Alan Tudyk. You are welcome because he is so good. I love that man. Death at a Funeral is just, I could watch that movie several times in the same day and still laugh the same and still enjoy it the same amount, no matter how many times I've watched this movie.
Yeah.
It's such a, it's super dark premise. They're at their father's funeral. There's some blackmail that's going on, or at least trying to go along. They're trying to like hide the blackmail. I don't want to give too much away because it's kind of a funny little gag that they do. But you got like inner family turmoil, and it's just to like have the setting for all these shenanigans that just keep building on top of each other, all at this funeral where the oldest son is trying to just give a respectful like send off for his dad, and nothing goes right from the very beginning of the movie. Like it's all wrong from the very first scene of the film. It's so good. You gotta watch that original British version. Go ahead and find it. I don't even know how I came across it.
Yeah.
Or like when I watched it. I just remember seeing it one day and I loved it. I just know I've always loved it. It's weird to feel so much like affection towards a film, and I have no memory of that first time I ever saw it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember how I found it either. It's just one of those movies that I think I just kind of came across. I didn't realize it was directed by Frank Oz, though. That's
Frank Oz.
crazy.
So that was my next note. Frank Oz directed this movie, and I realized when I was like looking it up and then looking at his filmography, I was like, oh shit, I'm actually a bigger Frank Oz fan as a director than I ever thought, because I really enjoy the majority of his films.
I only ever think of like Muppet related things with Frank Oz.
Right.
He's done a lot more.
Yeah, he I lost my screen here. Frank Oz. Yeah, he I'm stalling. Can you tell? Yeah.
Yeah. It also has Peter Dinklage and Ewan Bremner, who is Twomley in Black Hawk Down.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, he directed The Stepford Wives. He did the movie The Score, which is one everyone should go watch. That is such a cool heist movie. He did Bowfinger. He did In and Out, The Indian in the Cupboard, House Sitter. What About Bob? How did I not watch What About Bob?
I was thinking the exact same thing as soon as I saw What About Bob. That's a mistake on both of our parts, I think.
Oh my God. How did I forget? Okay, we're going to do like an extended honorable mention for What About Bob at the end of this. I can't believe we did not do What About Bob. But he also did Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and Little Shop of Horror. Dude, see, Frank Oz is the fucking man.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of Steve Martin movies that were so close to being on my list.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, people, please go watch Death at a Funeral. The original version, pretend that remake never happened.
Yeah.
It never should have.
Yeah, that's like an awkward thing that as soon as there's like a successful foreign movie, America's like, we'll remake that with American actors. And sometimes it's good. Most of the time it's not good.
Yeah, there's very seldom times that it's actually turned out very well.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, it gets ruined. I think we try too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. The Birdcage is a remake of like a famous French movie that I've never seen. That's the only remake that I'm like, oh, that's probably a good one. Because I know I know The Birdcage is good.
The Departed is a remake.
And
that movie is amazing.
It is amazing. Well, it helps when you have the right director and everything going on there.
True. Can't argue that one. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
All right, sir.
Great call. Actually, I'm very impressed by that. That's a beautiful cut that I didn't expect to come up.
Well, you are welcome for that.
My number 6 is a stoner comedy, probably the best stoner comedy of all time, Pineapple Express.
Yes.
It is the best buddy comedy movie between Seth Rogen and James Franco. They've had several great movies together, but this is the best, I think. And there's something about Pineapple Express. First of all, I'm not a stoner. I don't really know anything about the culture, but I, for some reason, find this movie hilarious and amazing. And
because it is.
It is. And it's primarily amazing because of their chemistry, their interaction. They play two guys who like are obviously James Franco's a weed dealer. The other guy is just like he's a process server, some normal guy. And they get stuck together, evading hitmen, and kind of form this beautiful friendship that kind of against their will in a way. Well, against Seth Rogen's will. James Franco's all about it. And it's the funniest thing, and the dialogue is the best. The dialogue's like my favorite. Everything. This movie is so quotable. And my especially favorite part is Danny McBride's character, Red. And when they go to Danny McBride's house, everything he does and says is amazing, and it just made me fall in love with Danny McBride.
It's a Daewoo, motherfucker.
Yeah. And to this day, everything about this movie, I quote it in normal life. I don't think anybody gets it. I quote when Craig Robinson says, "I seen it."
Yes, you and I are notorious for going around being like, "I seen it," and no one ever gets it. And you're like, you gotta see Pineapple Express, man. I find myself quoting "The monkey's out of the bottle now." He can't go back in once he's out, and no one gets that one either, and that bums me out. Dude, Pineapple Express. Yeah, in terms of stoner comedy, I mean, I grew up, this is a weird sentence to say because I did, well, not grow up, but I saw it at a fairly young age, younger than I probably should have, and definitely younger than my mother wanted me to. But I remember watching Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke and thinking it was hilarious. That was before I tried weed. I don't smoke at all anymore, but stoner comedies are great. But when I watched Pineapple Express, I remember just being like, this not only is one of the best action movies, but it's one of the funniest movies I've ever watched. And it's like, I think it's the best stoner movie I've ever seen. Yeah. It weirdly, it does have a lot of great action in it. It like car chases, the cop car chase is hilarious. Dude.
The whole barn sequence and the shootouts and the fire and explosions.
Oh, man, the whole fight sequence in the barn is amazing. But in terms of the car chasing, the moment the windshield does not just shatter completely, I was like, I was like, yes.
I love when he's like, hold on, I'm going to stomp on my brakes and she'll fly right past. And then he stomps on his brake and then she brakes
she just stops.
It doesn't work at all. I'm like, I thought that would have worked. Every movie it always works.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't believe I didn't put that on my list because I thought I talked about it or had it on my comedy list. So I was like, I couldn't quite remember. So, but Pineapple Express is so freaking, man, that's such a great pick, Jake. Oh man, I'm so jealous of that pick.
It's amazing. I'll watch it for the end of time.
Dude, we haven't even gotten halfway through. And I've already had so many that I'm like, oh, how did I not?
There's several I'm going to need to go watch after this, even though I've been watching them all week.
Right. Try and combine them with next week's episode too.
Yeah.
Man, that's such a good pick. I feel kind of weird now because my transition from a stoner action comedy that is like so inappropriate, not that sweet of a movie. Yeah, it's got some pretty sweet moments, but
it's about friendship. How dare you? It's about friendship.
We shared that sucker, man.
I broke Justin.
Oh man, the whole fight in the house is so awesome. Sorry, I'm just replaying it with like the kitty litter. All right. Well, I'm going super wholesome.
Okay.
With my number 6. This is, I mean, you can watch this movie with any age person, and it genuinely is just one of the most feel-good movies I've ever watched. It's full of music, but it's not a musical.
Okay.
My number 6 is That Thing You Do.
Yeah.
Written and directed by Tom Hanks. It is about kind of a one-hit wonder band. Not kind of. It is about a band that is a one-hit wonder back in the 60s. And it's so genuine and it's so sweet. And you feel great watching it. They do such a great job of immersing you into that time period, like the innocent part of that time period in small town Pennsylvania, where they're like, they get invited to go and perform in Pittsburgh. And that is basically hitting it big for them as going to Pittsburgh to perform. Not every character is so sweet. The lead singer's a super douche, but I saw this in the theater with my family, and it just for my whole family. That Thing You Do is a movie all of us can watch over and over again. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel great. You get to listen to a whole bunch of really good music that you wish was like mass, like made for the masses, which I guess it is. But you know what I mean? Like, yeah. This is such a wonderful movie. It's so wonderful. And I remember showing my daughter the movie, and she thought she was gonna like not enjoy it, and then the songs all got stuck in her head, and she thought it was super funny, and just it is one of the most definitive feel good films ever, and it makes sense coming from Tom Hanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing it a long time ago, and it's been a minute since I've seen it, but I've seen it several times. It's a really fun movie. Yeah,
and as you all know, I'm a sucker for jazz and jazz being used in film.
Yeah.
And like the main character, he's the drummer. He is a jazz fan. So you get to hear a whole bunch of good jazz, and he plays some great jazz. It's so good. Oh, I want more of it. Ow.
That's a really good, a good pick.
Yeah. That Thing You Do.
Well, I think that was a good transition. My next movie is more serious. It may be the most serious, most legitimate, dramatic film on my list, but still feel good, still comfortable, still counts. My number 5 is The Count of Monte Cristo.
Really?
Yeah, I love this movie, and I think it's mostly due to Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce and how they play those two friends who are basically like brothers, but one wrongfully imprisons the other. If you've never read the book, obviously Alexander Dumas's book is like a classic. Everybody should read it. I don't even read books, and I've read that book. But this movie, I think, is such a perfect way to capture the story and the romance between him and Mercedes, the relationship between him and his friend, and how they have his friend is very jealous of him, but he still treats him kindly and all this good stuff. And then just the overall story of how he gets betrayed, goes to prison, learns all this stuff. He finds secret treasure, uses his wealth to like get revenge on his friend. And the whole story and how he kind of remains true to himself in the end is beautiful. You know it's an epic movie because it's directed by Kevin Reynolds, who directed Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Waterworld. It's very huge, epic Kevin Costner movies.
Of course you're going to include Waterworld. Of course you're including Waterworld.
He's only done a handful of things. I had to include Waterworld. But yeah, there's just something about Count of Monte Cristo. I think it's partly the sword fighting, it's a period movie, and the outfits, and the prison, and the escape from the prison. Everything about Count of Monte Cristo I've just always gone back to, and I think I approach it with my the excitement or interest that I had as a young boy who liked sword fighting over and a little bit of romance fighting for the love of your life and all this stuff. It's such a great movie, and Jim Caviezel is amazing. He is, I think, underappreciated. He's amazing. Guy Pearce obviously is amazing. I think he's probably underappreciated also, but more so appreciated with things like Memento and stuff. So great.
Man, I remember The Count of Monte Cristo coming out. I was working at that video store, the rental store.
Yeah.
Back in high school when it came out. And that was one of those movies. It really was so good. And I can't believe I forgot about it over time. As you were speaking, I was going online and being like, well, we're revisiting this one. Because I remember loving the hell out of it. And it was crazy because when it came out on like VHS and DVD, it was one of those movies we could never keep in stock. It was constantly out because everyone was wanting to watch it. And it really is. It was so good. It was really, really good. And I am with you. There is something when it comes to like action movies with like the fight sequences. Yeah, the gunfights are cool. They're fun. But there's something like genuinely exciting when it comes to the sword fights in films. I know I talked about it on like our favorite sequels when I brought up Pirates 2.
Yeah.
All the sword fighting, especially the sword fight sequence on top of the wheel for me, like that is some of the most exciting like moments in film for me. And it not just with pirates, but sword fights. I mean, the stakes are way higher.
Yeah.
Because you got to be up close. So you never quite know who's going to like put their foot out wrong. Who's going to take like, who's going to get cut on the arm or the chest. Like,
yeah, it's so
sword fights are so good.
And it reminds me of so much of like a lot of my childhood was watching like Errol Flynn's Robin Hood and other movies about sword fighting was like the first action I was able to watch, I guess, because gun, shooting people is too violent. But if you had sword fighting in like a 40s movie, it was okay. So
it was all right.
Maybe that adventure is part of it.
Maybe because being stabbed and having to bleed out and die. That's
yeah, over like the course of a day.
Right. That's such a good pick, man. Oh my God. I told you there was going to be so many on this list that I was going to be like, shit, I gotta go back to this one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a good transition from the count to my number 5, but a lot like your number 6, my number 5 is regarded as a fantastic stoner comedy. It is possibly my all-time favorite Jeff Bridges movie. It's one of my favorite Coen Brothers movie, and if you haven't caught on just by those two, where the hell have you been? My number 5 is The Big Lebowski.
Dude.
The Dude Abides. Yeah. I love every second of this film. It is so good. I love how calm Sam Elliott's narration is during the film.
Yeah.
The opening scene is one of my all-time favorite opening scenes where he writes the check of 69 cents for his milk. And that is like the only normal moment of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's such a ridiculous film that goes into so many different directions that make no sense, but you are in it for the ride and it is so enjoyable. It's so funny to me. John Goodman, this is him in his prime, man. Him as Walter's one of the best characters ever. You're out of your element, Donnie. I love The Big Lebowski. This is really the movie that I think turned me into a Coen Brothers fan.
Yeah. Same.
Before I saw all of their other stuff or, the stuff that came after this, Big Lebowski was the one that I watched where I was like, oh my God, who are these guys? And I have been a huge fan of theirs ever since. And as great as their super dramatic stuff is, because it is incredible, I think the Coen brothers write comedy better because it's such a different kind of comedy. They are all for absurdity, but not in the kind of dumb way, if you will. It's just the situations are absurd, and that's what feeds the comedy. I love it. I think it's one of the best comedies. I could watch this movie over and over again. I do watch this movie over and over again.
Yeah, I think the way they write comedy is very grounded in reality, that
Yeah.
all of this stuff could happen. These people could be this way or this eccentric, or in the case of like Fargo or whatever, that the comedy just comes from an awkward situation or an uncomfortable interaction. It just gets funny for some reason. It's great.
Yeah, the movie took me off guard the first time I watched it because I had heard a lot of grown-ups in my life, and it came out when I was a young kid. So all the adults in my life were like, "We can't stand this movie." They just curse the whole time, like it's so inappropriate, it's so dumb. And that kind of intrigued me to watch it because as a young kid and you hear adults complain about foul language, you're like, I have to see this. And then I did and was like, I love this movie. I have loved it ever since. Oh my God.
Yeah, it has to be one of the most massively regarded movies, the most upheld on a pedestal movies of all time. And I know a lot of those kinds of movies people have missed or skipped or felt like they've heard all the jokes already or seen all the clips or GIFs or whatever. You haven't. This movie has so much going on in it. You need to check it out.
Oh man, this is another movie that I love to quote, especially obviously you are not a golfer, which I totally understand does not work unless someone's holding like a bowling ball or have seen this movie, but I love that line so much. Fun little things with this movie. So one, it's about bowling. Well, he's a bowler. Not once does Jeff Bridges bowl during the entire film. Not once. But they're like practicing for a league game the entire film. And he's not going to smoke real pot on set. So to give himself the appearance that he's stoned during the entire movie, right before they would call action, he would just rub his eyes like crazy, I guess. And then when they called action, he was like, my eyes would be red and glossy because I just irritated the hell out of him. Nice. Man.
I love John Turturro's character. And especially as he is polishing that ball, he's just the funniest guy. John Turturro's the funniest guy.
That close up of him licking the bowling ball before he throws it down the lane. Yeah, I just Jesus, you said it, man. Yeah. So number 5, The Big Lebowski. That's
a classic.
It's such a wonderful movie for me.
Yeah. My number 4, very similar to yours, is one of the most inappropriate movies that I've seen, especially the unrated version, but is also at the same time one of the most heartfelt romantic comedies ever. And I think this is the kind of movie that divides people. If you don't find this movie funny, I don't think that we can be friends. I know that you do, and I know that other people do, so we can still be friends. My number 4 is Wedding Crashers.
Oh my God. Wedding Crashers is fantastic.
Which I honestly feel like I need to go back and add to my top 10 comedy list because I left it off and I feel like an idiot for doing that. It is the funniest movie, just as far as dialogue goes, the way the dialogue is, the way it's delivered. So like naturally, the interactions between Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn is perfect. Their interactions with everybody. The cast is perfect. Rachel McAdams and Isla Fisher as like their romantic opposites. They're so fun, but especially Christopher Walken and Jane Seymour and Will Ferrell and all these other people that pop up.
Hey man, Bradley Cooper before everyone knew who he was.
Yes, Bradley Cooper is a dick in this movie, but it's so good. There's so many lines. Like this is one of those movies I watch and I just want to quote along with it the whole time I'm watching it because I know all the lines. I love all the lines. They make me laugh when I say them before they say it, and then I laugh again when they say it.
Yeah.
It's
Mom,
it's just
meatloaf.
it's just the absolute funniest movie, and I could watch it all the time. And that's all I really have to say about it. I love Wedding Crashers. It is one of the funniest movies. It's so much more funny than it even needs to be. That's the kind of thing that shocks me, is that it should just be a comedy movie about these guys that crash weddings, but it's so much funnier than any movie that would normally be about that. And at the same time is genuinely sweet about their relationship as friends. One of them goes through a really hard time towards the end and they help each other out. And it's a perfect romantic comedy where there's legitimate romance and chemistry between them.
I was just right before we sat down to record, I was just talking to my daughter about romantic comedy formulas and how they all hit certain notes, and they have to. This is the formula for it. And Wedding Crashers hits every single one of those notes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
a total rom-com.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Wedding Crashers is so good. Man.
The painting was a gift, Todd.
Oh, I forgot about the brother.
Yeah. The awkward, let's play tummy sticks. The awkward, probably gay artist brother.
Dude, and Christopher Walken is so funny in that too, as the senator. Oh, that's such a great pick, Jake. Oh my God. Oh, what a fantastic. I might. Monica, you're going to bed early tonight.
Why?
So I can watch a movie you can't. That didn't work out. I knew it wasn't going to.
Yeah, nice try.
Well, my number 4, you actually already mentioned in this episode, but not as a pick of yours. You just said the title of it, and I was like, oh, dang. You used it as an example earlier. Yeah. You know that I have been obsessed with this movie since I watched it. It's fairly recent in the last few years. And oh my God, I watched this movie. Honestly, I think this movie gets played at least once or twice a week. It's nuts how often I go back to this movie. It's so dumb how often I go back to this movie.
Okay.
To the point where I almost tried to get my daughter to watch it. I was telling her what it was about in hopes that she would be down for watching it, even though it's so bloody and it's so brutal, but it's not like scary.
Yeah.
It's all right. My number 4 is Ready or Not.
Yeah.
I cannot get over this movie. It is, dude.
I remember the first time we saw it in the theater, and by the end of it was just dying laughing. One of the hardest times I've ever laughed in a theater was at Ready or Not.
Yeah. Every time I watch it too, I'm always so happy that I saw this on the big screen too, because no one else went and saw it. No one else seemed to give this movie a shot.
Well, it came out at a very awkward time around I think right when COVID started or something.
Yeah. Was it right around COVID?
It was near. I thought it was there was some conflict.
I could see that. Either way, dude, this movie is it is borderline perfect to me.
Yeah.
And it all focuses down and boils down to Samara Weaving. I genuinely believe her performance in this movie is top-notch acting.
Yeah.
Everything from all the cutesy little subtle things that she does at the start, the first third of the movie, to how her character responds, how she emotionally is reacting to everything going on around her. She gives the perfect performance. I love Samara Weaving. And it helps that I'm also a huge fan of her Netflix movie, The Babysitter. Go watch that, guys. It's hilarious as well.
It's been on my list to watch. I haven't seen it yet.
It's hilarious. The second one was kind of a letdown, but that's not a shocker.
Yeah.
But that first one's fantastic. But yeah, Ready or Not, I love the originality of the movie. I love everything that this movie does. I think the cast is perfect. I think the characters are all exactly how they should be and need to be. Goddamn, Ready or Not is one of the most fun movies I've ever watched. And like, I get excited when the game starts and they put the hide and seek record on. That kicks in and I'm like, yay. This movie has so many little subtle like responses or little reactions from characters in the background. It's so good. This movie was put together way too well and does not get the appreciation it absolutely deserves. And I'm not exaggerating. I really do watch this movie about once a week.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. It is one of those kinds of movies that would be it's so rewatchable.
It's so good. And there's so many moments and I'm still just in awe of like her. I love Samara Weaving. I love her. I want her in everything. I just want to watch everything with her.
Yeah, I was so confused because I had briefly seen the trailer and I honestly thought Margot Robbie was in it. And then I saw the movie. I was like, when does Margot Robbie show up in this movie? She looks a little similar.
Yep. So yeah, that was my number 4 is Ready or Not. Man.
So good.
It's so good.
All right, my number 3.
Oh, dang, we're already in the top 3.
This 3.
Is nuts. We are cruising today.
We are cruising. My number 3 is one of my all-time favorite, obviously, movies. Even though it hasn't been on any top 10 specific genres, it is one of my all-time favorite movies. And I didn't have it on my top 10 romance, specifically for the reason that I already had You've Got Mail on there. And You've Got Mail is a better example of interaction. There's much more interaction between Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks in You've Got Mail. In my movie, my number 3, Sleepless in Seattle.
Yep.
There's almost no interaction between Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. They say a couple of words to each other through the whole movie. But the beauty is you still know as an audience that they are perfect for each other because of everything else that you've seen in their individual lives. When they finally do talk to each other, it's just a release of energy and excitement. There's something about Sleepless in Seattle that it's slow, it's gentle, it's a little sad. It starts at his wife's funeral.
It is a little sad, actually.
He's very distraught about his wife dying, understandably, but that adds to the romance factor where you get the sense that he is so in love with her. He's such a romantic, and even though it jumps ahead 18 months, he's still having trouble moving on. I love him and his interactions and just the whole story. I especially love him and the people around him and how they try to support him. And I would laugh every time when Tom Hanks and Victor Garber are crying, describing The Dirty Dozen. And they're at the dinner table and describing The Dirty Dozen, but they're describing it as if a woman's describing a romance movie that they've seen. Yeah. It's just the funniest thing ever. I learned this week that whole scene was completely improvised.
Oh, dang.
During that take, which is so crazy. So I think a lot of the reasons it works so well is owed to director and co-writer Nora Ephron, who of course directed You've Got Mail and Makes Nuts If You Like a Bizarre Christmas Movie with Steve Martin. And she also wrote When Harry Met Sally. So obviously she gets romance, gets kind of a unique perspective on romance. And my favorite thing is she writes how men view romance and what they value in romance, the male side of it differently and equally, and the women's side differently and equally. And so you see such interesting side of Tom Hanks and his friends and their dealings with severe romantic situations.
Right.
Then you see with Meg Ryan and Rosie O'Donnell, and they're still honest and genuine, and but more. I mean, it's just men versus women in such a perfect way that is still unifying, if that makes sense.
No, it is. Yeah. Sleepless in Seattle is just, it's so classic. It's
so classic.
It's so good.
I do feel a little bad for Walter, who is Meg Ryan's fiance, played by Bill Pullman, because, you know, they do end up getting broken up, but it's probably partly because I am a bit of a Walter. Like when he's like getting ready for bed and he has this like humidifier. I'm not allergic to everything, but he like has a humidifier by his bed and they have the whole like routine with each other. I'm like, yeah, I'm a total Walter. I'm definitely not Tom Hanks in this. So that's a little bit sad.
See, everyone gets to learn something new about you and I every week.
It's true. I'm putting myself out there.
It happens. It happens. Yeah, Sleepless in Seattle. Man, I haven't watched it for a long time, but I know it was one of those movies where if it happened to be on, like on TV, or if like I'd walk into my parents' house and my parents would be watching it. It's one of those movies where you're just like, oh, yes. And you sit down and you immediately are sucked into the story. You're just enjoying the film. His son is awesome in it. How he's like, he's a cute kid.
Yeah.
But I've always really appreciated Tom Hanks's, his portrayal through that movie of like dealing with his grief and what he does as kind of like, tactics to work through it, to process it and stuff. So Sleepless in Seattle is it's good. That's a good pick, Jake. That's a very good pick.
Thank you.
Well, my number 3 is one of those movies that surprised me when I watched it.
Okay.
Because it's not like it's a great film, but it's one of those for me that just, man, I connected to this movie immediately, and the music of the movie, I think, works perfect at connecting to every emotion or mood that you're in. If you've ever tried, like, how do I figure out where to go from here? This movie does a really good job of doing that and kind of like showing it's not easy to do anything, especially if you continue to make not great decisions. So my number 3 is Adventureland.
Okay.
With Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
I think it's the whole setting in the 80s, the whole idea of like this college grad has to get a summer job at this summer theme park to help pay for his grad school tuition and vacation and moving to New York to try and start off this whole new elaborate life that he has plotted out in his head. But reality is like, hey, like money is not easy to come by. Like things happen in life that you have to learn how to adapt to, and you're not adapting to it too well. It's a very quiet, kind of subtle movie. No joke in the movie is made to make you laugh out loud. None of the drama is made to make you feel like super sad or depressed. It just feels very much like this is how, kind of a culmination of like life in general, but it's all in summertime. So what are you going to do to adapt through it or work through it? I connect to this movie, and I can never really super pinpoint why. Because, like, I'm not a stoner. I don't worry about having a summer job. I have a pretty steady job. Have always had a steady job.
Yeah.
But there's something about Jesse Eisenberg's character that I really identify with and connect to, and every time I watch it, I feel like, okay, is this where he's at in this scene? Is that where I'm at right now? Like, all right, what are we doing from this point on? I love the quietness of the movie, and I love the simpleness of the film.
Yeah.
And then the cherry on top, you get Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig playing the couple who own and run Adventureland. And they are ridiculous, and they are over the top, as they should be. But
yeah, you want them to be.
The movie's not for everyone, and I totally understand when people look at me weird when I bring it up, because everyone's like, oh, why would you like that movie? I don't know, man. I connect to this movie so much that, yeah, it is a big go-to for me, and it's one that I used a lot. Hey, learning more stuff. So when my marriage ended, I watched Adventureland on loop with Forgetting Sarah Marshall and a couple others. They were that loop for me. And Adventureland's just kind of been, it's always been that movie that I just use. Like if I'm having a super shit day, I can pop Adventureland in and I'm okay at the end of it. It's just one of those movies for me.
Yeah. That's interesting. I remember seeing it ages ago and wasn't blown away, or it was kind of forgettable. I don't really remember anything about it other than I definitely saw it at some point.
Yeah, I will say I think the marketing for it was horrible. Yeah. Because it is directed by Greg Mottola, who also directed Superbad, and it got compared to Superbad. It said it was the funniest movie since Superbad. It's from the director of it, so it's like it's gonna be another Superbad, and it's not at all.
Yeah, I do think I recall it, anticipating it being hilarious, and then was disappointed that it wasn't. Like, just a hilarious comedy.
Yeah, it's just a quiet movie. And I click with this movie way more than I probably should have. But
nice.
It's just that movie for me.
Well, that's awesome. My number 2 most comfortable movie is one that you also click with because you just mentioned it, Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yes. This would have been a crossover, but that was on one of my top 10 comedies. So
yeah,
couldn't put that one here.
I honestly should have had it on my top 10 comedies. I'm disappointed in myself as well. I looked back and I was like, I can't believe I haven't talked about this movie before, because it is so comfortable. The very first time I saw this movie was back when you rented DVDs from Netflix through the mail.
Yeah.
And that's what Netflix used to be, kids. You didn't stream anything. They were someone who would send you a DVD in the mail and you could watch it and then send it back. I watched this movie, fell in love with it. As soon as it ended, I pushed play and watched it again because I was like, this movie is unbelievably great. It's fun. It's gentle. It's hilarious. And I didn't realize at the time, but having gotten more into this movie over time, I'm blown away by the fact that so it was directed by Nicholas Stoller, written by Jason Segel, who obviously also stars in it. It was both of their first like feature credits ever.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to create something as good as this as their first movies is unbelievable. I think it also adds to it being pretty unique that there's just no real movies like this. Everything about the way it's edited, it's pretty quick, it's pretty choppy, it moves very well. Just the cast and the dialogue. The dialogue is a huge thing for me, just like Wedding Crashers, just like Pineapple Express. Forgetting Sarah Marshall is one of those movies that is infinitely quotable. Every character is silly and has eccentric lines, and even from the weird couple checking into the hotel in Hawaii, who's obviously an awkward virgin. I say God put our mouths on our heads for a reason more times than I should.
No.
Because of this movie and how hilarious it is.
Dude, okay. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall is one of my all-time favorites. It's not just comedy. It is one of my all-time favorite movies. Everything you said is perfect. It is one of the best movies ever. And quotable. Damn, dude. This movie has one of my all-time favorite lines in it too. When he's at the resort and he sees Sarah Marshall again, she's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's, "I came to kill you." Or "I came to murder you."
Yeah.
I love that line. I have said that line to people when they're like, "Hey, what are you doing here? Hey, what's up?" I'm like, "Hey, I came to murder you." People don't find it funny, actually, and that makes me sad.
Well, I mean, neither did Kristen Bell in that moment.
True. Yeah, dude. Forgetting Sarah Marshall is a special movie.
Yeah. Especially now that it's getting colder outside, the amount of times during the day I'm singing, "The weather outside is weather."
It's weather.
It's too much. And I'm the only one that laughs inside myself, and it's great.
I quote Paul Rudd too, not just with "the weather outside is weather," but always, you got to do the lemon line. You know,
Yeah.
Hey, when life gives you lemons, you got to say "fuck the lemons" and bail.
Got some
do
pain
more.
behind those eyes, POP.
do less. No, do less than that. Well, now you're not doing anything. You got to do something. Nope, do less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Everybody's hilarious. Russell Brand is hilarious. I think it was my introduction to him.
I think that was
insane.
the introduction for everyone to him.
It could be. And of course, Bill Hader is always great as his like brother or stepbrother or something, half brother. They're so funny, and especially their video calls with him and his wife.
Trying to change the background on it. Oh, hey, we're doing a luau.
We're at a hula. Luau. What is it? Yeah, they're hilarious. Oh my god,
man,
it's so good. Especially if you're going through a breakup or something, it's just a perfect. Get yourself back out there, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That there's something else. It's just like Elizabethtown. There's something else around the corner. There's somebody else who is gonna talk to you, like you, that kind of stuff. And you're not going to expect it, but it's going to be perfect.
Yeah, that's so far, man. I mean, your list is amazing, but that one amazing. Is that's like my favorite pick from you so far, and
good.
That makes sense. Well, my number 2 is gonna fit perfect with all of this, from my number 3 to your number 2. This one might be your favorite pick of mine. This was one I can't believe I didn't have it on my comedy list. Like when I went back to look, I was like, wait a minute, how is this not there? I don't understand that. But I got it now when I'm watched it for this week. Cause this is just a great movie about friendship. I'm not even my number 2 is Superbad. It's just, dude.
Superbad is too good.
It's too good. It's too good. It's just this movie, it was one of those movies when I went and saw it in the theater when it came out. You know how some movies you just have that gut instinct, like, I'm going to love this movie a lot. And then it exceeds that, and you're like, I'm now dedicated to this movie. I'm a little too obsessed with this movie. That was Superbad for me, and continues to be. I think everything in this movie works so well. I love the fact that Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg have been writing this movie since they were in high school, which is why some of the things that happen in this movie actually happen to them or are based on things that happen to them. Yeah. It adds to like the ridiculous realism of that time period. It's kind of fun. The time period. I love
Yeah.
that it is current. Well, now it would be in the past. So when it came out, it was current times, but it felt like it was taking place in the 80s from the clothes that people were wearing, the cars that they're driving, just it's a weird film. The music to the soundtrack, that soundtrack. Oh my God.
These eyes. Yeah.
Dude, the opening credits where it's like them dancing is just I love everything about Superbad. The dialogue is amazing in it. I think opening the whole movie with their conversation of what website would be best to subscribe to. I can't go into detail. My 12-year-old is across the room from me.
Yeah.
If you've seen the movie, you know. If you haven't seen the movie, where the hell have you been? Go watch it. But I love the heart of the story, which is these best friends who inevitably are going to be separated. Their lives are officially going to take off in different directions, and they're kind of having a hard time coping with it. So they spend a lot of the movie avoiding it, like avoiding bringing it up, avoiding talking about it, even though they know they're super codependent with each other, and pretty soon they're going to be forced to not be. And I love how the situations they find themselves are kind of like forcing them to think on their own. And then they come back and then they get forced to think on their own again. I really appreciate the subtlety, and Superbad is such a great example of Seth Rogen's style of writing. You and I have brought this up a few times with his movies, where on the surface, it's ridiculous, stupid stoner comedy. You know, it's gross, it's offensive, it's crude. But the heart of all of his movies essentially comes down to something that's very serious and very real. And Superbad is such a great example of that, especially with, like, the final shot of the film is one of my favorite shot. Like the ending is so well edited and putting it, like, it's just, it gives you such a great feeling of like, it'll be okay. And that's a pretty cool thing to like to get from a movie. But Superbad, minus like the takeaway from it, dude, the comedy is top notch. And again, it's one of the most quoted films. To this day, you still see McLovin crap everywhere. Everyone wants a McLovin ID or a t-shirt. Like, Seth and Evan are amazing. I think it's, besides Arrested Development, I think it's Michael Cera's best work. I think it was such a great push for Jonah Hill's career. Obviously, he's become Oscar nominated, and he became just an entity in Hollywood, which I think is really cool for him. Emma Stone, oh my God, this movie catapulted her.
Same for her, yeah.
Superbad is such a special movie to me. It's so freaking funny. It is painfully funny, but it's got so much heart in it. And it is, man, when it ends and the music is playing, you can't help but want to like dance along with the DVD menu or to the opening credits. And God, if you walk away from Superbad not smiling, laughing, or feeling good, you really need to take a good hard look at something.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I think the only people that don't like Superbad focus too much on bad words and language. And if you are getting hung up on that, you need to evaluate that, because if you look even just a tiny bit further into what the actual movie is about, and it's just such an enjoyable, deep movie, deeper than it like seems like it is on the surface. It seems like it's just a movie about kids saying fuck a lot, but it's not. It's such a deep, hilarious movie. One of the best of all time.
Yeah. It was really hard not having this at my number one, but my number one, they're pretty much tied. It's another one of those kinds of lists for me, but my number one is my number one for very specific reasons that you will chuckle on the inside to yourself about. Okay. But yeah, Superbad is just Man, what a
Yeah.
special movie.
It really is. I freaking love that movie. It's the best. Okay. My number one most comfortable movie of all time is a weird one. I'm sure nobody sees this coming. I don't think even you will see this coming.
That was such a great way that you said that. It is a weird one.
It's
Mandy.
It's not Mandy, but it's thematically and aesthetically pretty similar to Mandy. So that's
oh,
not far
dang.
off.
Oh, wow.
So my number one is Valhalla Rising. I actually don't know if you've ever seen it.
You have brought this one up before, sir.
Yeah. It is incredible. And there's something about it that I cannot explain. It's aesthetic, it's color, it's sound. There's a lot of long stretches of no dialogue in this movie, but it's visually stunning. I fall asleep to this movie. I love this movie. It's so comfortable, which is a weird thing to say because there's a lot of blood and a lot of violence. It's about a guy played by Mads Mikkelsen. He plays a character named One Eye, who was like a slave who had to fight people. He was just like a fighting slave. Ends up escaping, hooking up with these guys who are traveling to the Holy Land in the Crusades. So it takes place in 1000 AD, super in the past. It's very Nordic, kind of pagan-y. There's a lot of people getting their heads chopped off. There's a lot of blood. It's disgusting and great. I love it. And the best thing about it is it's just the visuals. And so it's written and directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, who is most famous for directing Drive. He's also written and directed The Neon Demon, Bronson, Only God Forgives, all of these very stylized, violent, colorful movies. And Valhalla Rising is just, I don't know if it's that it has so much to do with he's not a Viking, but he seems kind of Viking-y, and the landscapes and the color and the combat and the axes and the beheadings, and there's something so cathartic about this movie, and it's so comfortable for me, and I don't know why that is, but it's great. And I love Mads Mikkelsen. I think he's underrated. He's great in everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. You have brought Valhalla Rising up before. Mm. I'm trying to remember when. I know it was quite a while ago because I was still in Colorado and we were in the actual studio room. Yeah, I know how much you love it because you bring this movie up, not super regularly, but you have talked about it several times.
It's up there with The Raid. I bring it up to a lot of people all the time because I love it so much.
And that's fair, man. That's fair. I have not watched it, but I feel like I owe it to you, not in a bad way, but I owe it to you to get the movie watched, which is just another one on my giant list of movies I need to watch for Jake.
I'll just make us watch it for the show, and then you have to make time.
There it is. That's how we need to do this, is what movie, which we already do. Folks, if you want insight, whenever there's a new list, a top 10 or a deep dive or whatever, it's because there's one movie there that we're I want to talk about this one. I want to bring this one up. How am I going to do it? It's what we do.
It's worked so far.
Yeah. I do have to laugh that your number one is bloody and violent and Nordish and all that. And mine is very calm. It is not violent at all.
Is it wholesome?
It is very wholesome. It's very real.
We're switching roles here.
It's weird, man. It's weird. But this is another one. You've heard me talk about it several times. It's one of the most beautiful films to me. It hits every perfect note, especially when dealing with like grief, anger, family, kind of leaving legacies and what legacy actually means. And it's full of a whole bunch of different things, but the performances are some of the most natural, real performances I've ever seen. It's my personal favorite of the star, I think, and he's already an amazing actor, but there's something very like powerful because of how natural and real his performance feels in this movie. But my number one is a movie called The Descendants with George Clooney. So if you haven't seen it, it's about this father who has two daughters. One is 17, one is 10. The 17-year-old has been sent off to kind of an all-girls school because her behavior is bad. And his wife gets in a boating accident and is in a coma. So he's bringing his daughter home because he gets news that the wife is not going to make it. They have to pull the plug. So the film it starts off with how do we grieve as a family and kind of prepare friends and family for saying goodbye. And then it turns into mom was having an affair. Let's go find the guy. And that whole storyline it's got some very funny moments in it. Very like genuinely hilarious scenes, but it has so much heart and it's so relatable for whether you have been in a relationship with some adultery or whatever, or if you know people that have. The film just feels almost too real. And then there's some added stuff to it that ends up because he also happens to be like this super rich lawyer, kind of famous lawyer whose family owns this untouched piece of land in Hawaii, and it's been preserved and entrusted to them. And they are getting ready to finalize it, selling that land to this big conglomerate kind of guy who wants to build hotels and golf courses. So there's a lot on George Clooney's character's mind throughout the entire film of how do you adjust all this stuff? How do you do things correct all the time when it's impossible to do things correctly all the time? It is one of the most heart-touching films I've ever watched. It's heartbreaking at moments. It's very funny. It's never like, it's so good. It's so good. It is one of my all-time. I really wanted it to be in like the top drama, but I almost felt like it deserved more than just being in my top drama list. But this movie, man, everything about it. Alexander Payne, it's my favorite movie of his. He directed it, and if I remember right, co-wrote it. I just forgot the actress's name, but it was her first. She plays the oldest daughter.
Shailene Woodley.
Thank you. I think it's her best work.
Yeah, I honestly genuinely do too.
I think it was one of those times where everything, the stars align just right, if you will. And it's genuinely one of the most beautiful movies I've ever watched. And then on top of it, you get a lot of music from Hawaii as the soundtrack, which just adds to you physically feel calm while watching this movie. Even when you're like, it's a dramatic scene, you are calm. Yeah. You feel at ease throughout the film. And then again, it has the best ending. The final shot is there's no dialogue. It is simply just perfect. And The Descendants, I am passionate about this movie. And it has, not only is it like just a great movie to me, but like Superbad, like Forgetting Sarah Marshall, just forgot the other one that I said, Adventureland. It became kind of a tool for me in my own personal life of going back to it to kind of ground myself, if you will, kind of like recenter, refocus, whatever. Not to sound too like, ooh, but I use the Descendants as that, like, okay, we need to reset. So Descendants is my number one. I love everything about this movie. I really do.
I think that's beautiful. The Descendants is funny for me because it was co-written by Jim Rash, who.
Oh yeah,
I remember when he won the Oscar, or when this won the Oscar for Best Screenwriting, and I see Jim Rash of all people, the principal from Community, get up on stage. I was like, "What in the hell is going on?"
Yeah,
so that I will always stick out in my mind as a hilarious thing. But yeah, you're right. It's a great movie.
It's so good. So yeah, that's those are our most comforting films.
I feel like it was such a comfortable list. I think we both had ones that the other one will need to go watch now that we forgot or didn't think about. I need to go back and watch several.
Yeah, a little bit. But real quick, I said it earlier. Let's just take a moment to give the proper respect or due. What about Bob? This movie is, man, Richard Dreyfuss, Bill Murray. There is nothing wrong with this movie. It is painfully hilarious.
Bill Murray is so great at his portraying all of his different neuroses, and so annoying and so incredibly also, I guess, heartwarming at the same time.
Right. You can't hate him. You're like, I would be so annoyed and I feel so much for the doctor, but at the same time you're like, but he's such a good human being. How can you be mad at him? He's so good.
Right.
I'm sailing. I'm a sailor now. Monica, have we watched What About Bob? Have you watched What About Bob?
No.
We are tonight.
I'm staying in my room.
Oh, man.
I watched it.
Nice try.
We could hear you. You were on the mic. Oh, man. Yeah, What About Bob? That movie has some dialogue in it that is just, it's killer. No pun intended. But the whole thing with buying all the explosives, it's death therapy, Bob. It's death therapy. Cigarette, Bob? Oh, I'm sorry. You're dead.
It's one of those movies that I hear, like, I think it has kind of a cult following. I hear a lot of people who love this movie, and then I hear a lot of people that are like, oh, I thought it was just like an average PG movie, you know?
Average movie. It's too good to be just an average movie.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's far above average.
Yeah, if you have not watched What About Bob, that needs to be remedied. You got to go watch it. Bill Murray plays this guy who's just got so many mental issues, and Richard Dreyfuss is his doctor who goes on vacation, and Bob is told, go on vacation, and he takes it literal and follows the doctor on his vacation. And it's just silly shenanigans ensue, ridiculousness, freakouts that are amazing. And it's just, it is a heartwarming movie when it doesn't necessarily need to be. And it's heartwarming in a weird way.
Yeah. It's kind of a fun, different family movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Go watch it, folks. It deserves it. And the cover is, I love the cover art for it, of them shaking hands and their shadows are like Richard Dreyfuss is screaming. It's just too good.
Like he's like wringing his neck. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jake, before we forget, like we did 1 or 2 episodes again, honorable mentions.
Okay. So my honorable mentions, a couple that I would have had on my list if I didn't have them on previous lists. Obviously, Sabrina was on my romance list. I will go back to that movie constantly, mostly the remake, with Greg Kinnear and Harrison Ford,
Yeah.
but the original with Audrey Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart's great also. And then There Will Be Blood was on my drama list. It will, I think for the same reason I like Valhalla Rising, there's so many long sections of just nothingness. It's the way that he talks, the way that Daniel Plainview talks, and it's just so, I don't know, there's something so comfortable, even though he's not a nice guy. He's drinking your milkshake. It's just like the whole thing. But the way he does it is so nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Roman Holiday with Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn. I have a lot of like old black and white movies that I go back to. Roman Holiday is definitely one of them. A big deal. And then George of the Jungle.
Hell yes. I wanted that on my list, but it was on my family list, so couldn't do it.
I had to bring it back up because I was like, it's been a minute since we talked about it. I didn't have it on my list, but it just didn't make the cut, so I needed to bring it up again. And then Blades of Glory with Will Ferrell. For some reason, it's like, I don't know. It's one of the funniest movies that I kind of forget is as good as it is sometimes if I haven't seen it in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh yeah, Will Ferrell is great. John Heder is great. But whenever you rewatch Blades of Glory, it's like up there as far as like hilarious dialogue, hilarious chemistry between them. All of the supporting cast is amazing. And I just love it. So yeah, that's my list.
That's a good one. My honorable mentions, after I narrowed them down, because I literally had to narrow them down to keep myself like from venturing too far. All the ones that I said during this episode of like, I can't believe that wasn't on my list, those all count too. But Best in Show is just, it's a very quiet movie. There's like no music the entire film, and it's a mockumentary directed by Christopher Guest and written by Guest and Eugene Levy. That whole crew, the Waiting for Guffman, they're a unique group, and I love them so much. But Best in Show is their best movie, at least to me. That is just, what a great movie. A great little fun poke at like dog shows. I love that film. Yes Man with Jim Carrey. That has become a huge go-to for me over the years. Bull Durham with Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon. That movie. Yes. Oh man. I know I had like Tin Cup on my sports list, but Bull Durham was right there too. Van Wilder with Ryan Reynolds. It's one of those raunchy, National Lampoons. Yep. It's a raunchy, stupid, gross early 2000s film, but it's funny. And I will never not laugh about the whole like bulldog gag. It's gross, but it's funny. And then my last two, The Great Outdoors is such a fantastic film with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. Yep. And then we brought it up last week, actually. Dan in Real Life. Yeah. I feel deserves a huge audience. So Steve Carell is brilliant in that movie. And I'm going to keep it to that to have some self-discipline. Otherwise, I would just like screenshot all of my movies and be like, there, because I can relax to them all. And yes, I do nap to The Exorcist sometimes.
It's different strokes for different folks, right?
It's true. It's true. Actually, I mean, I could sleep during any horror movie, but The Exorcist is just the funniest one that I'm able to do that to me.
Yeah. All right.
But so that's our most comforting films.
That was great, I think.
That was great. Watching these movies with that like kind of mentality of what the the focus of the episode was again this week. Man,
Yeah.
we have had a couple of amazing prep weeks. I have loved this so much. Like, I was so just relaxed this week. It's like,
Yeah. And I think next week's going to be very similar because I was watching some of this week's movies mixed in with next week's movies.
Yep.
And a lot of them are very silly, very funny. Next week, we are doing our top 10 satires.
yeah,
It's kind of a combination of
spoofs.
satire, spoofs, parodies,
Yeah.
all of that good stuff.
I am so looking forward to next week's. I watched a few already. It was like, oh man, Jake and I are probably going to have some stupid comedies on our list, and we're probably going to both laugh at the same jokes. We're probably going to have some crossovers. I really have to go back and relook at my comedy list and make sure I don't. Not just my comedy list. I have to go back and look at a few of our top 10s to make sure I don't repeat, because I already pulled out some that I was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, crap. I did talk about that one.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way.
But yeah, very excited. I know there are a few movies that I'm sure we're both going to bring up next week that we have both wanted to talk about just because of generational time. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very much looking forward to it. It should be so much fun. I'm already having fun, and we haven't even started the episode. So that's a good sign.
Well, all right. Well, that's it, folks. Thank you for everything. Be sure to check us out on all the social media stuff. I've been lazy on TikTok. I got to get back into that. But, you know, I sleep or watch movies during the day and then go to work. So
you have a life.
I do. But follow us on all that. Comment. Let us know your favorite comforting films, what movies you go to chill, relax, whatnot.
Especially what weird movies that comfort you that you feel like because we have several of those. I think everybody has one or two that they're like, this is really weird, but I love this, and I watch it all the time.
And it can be any genre or whatever. Clearly, Jake and I have odd relaxation tools, so
whatever works.
It's true. So thank you again, everybody. We appreciate everything, and we will see you next time.
Yep, sounds good. See ya.